the urgent versus important. You could spend all your time on the urgent and really kind of lose sight on the important things, making sure that you're really carving out time to focus on the important things, which are often a little bit more mid or long term. You have to do that. Otherwise, you're just kind of chasing. You're not able to stay ahead. You're not able to move.
At Mechanism, we build iconic brands with soul and science. The soul is culturally relevant brand building, and the science is the always-on marketing activities that drive the bottom line. Learn more at mechanism.com. Building a lasting brand is all about balancing long-term strategy with short-term wins. But what's the secret sauce marketers can use to drive both ongoing engagement and immediate business results? And how do you balance e-commerce growth with big box retail growth all at the same time? We're excited to welcome William White to the Soul and Science podcast. William White is the CMO at Walmart. His career spans some of the world's biggest brands, including Coca-Cola, Target, and KitchenAid. With his extensive experience in retail and commerce, William offers a unique perspective on the importance of long-term thinking in brand building. In this episode, you'll discover how to balance long-term brand strategy with the pressure of immediate sales goals. You'll discover why innovating with your customers in mind is key to driving year-over-year growth. You'll learn why staying with a brand for the long haul can deepen your insights into both the business and your career. Let's dive in and explore the soul and science of retail marketing. Before we get into Walmart, I wanted to learn about William White. What is your kind of origin story? Were you a happenstance marketer? Did you always know you wanted to get into marketing? Tell me about how your sort of career progression happened.
Kind of specific to career, I would really start off by saying when I was in college, I did a lot of internships in different fields. And that really helped me rule out things that I didn't want to do, from investment banking to politics to a whole host of other things. And my first job out of college, I worked for, now it's Starcom, big media agency that's part of Publicis. So I was working for Starcom MediaVest, and the second client that I worked on, so I'm, probably 23, 24 years old. I'm living in New York in like a 900 square foot apartment with two other roommates.
Wow, that's plush. That's pretty big.
Very. The kitchen that we had, you could touch every wall by standing in one place. In our oven, we used one of my roommates used the oven to store his jeans. So you can get a picture of what life was like in the kitchen in our place. And my second client that I worked on at MediaVest was KitchenAid. So all that to say, I really couldn't have been any further from the KitchenAid target audience than I was at that point in my life. And yet that might have been one of the best jobs, most fun jobs that I had in my career. And I loved really kind of getting into the mindset, the psyche, understanding the wants and needs, and all the behavioral things about KitchenAid's core audience. And I think it was, certainly at that moment where I realized marketing is a great field for me. And I wanted to go deeper. And so, after a little bit more time there in the agency world, I went back to business school, went deeper, studying marketing, got my MBA. And then I went to work for Coca-Cola, obviously a great marketer, learned a lot, so many talented people there, really good place to learn. I spent almost a decade at Coke, various kind of roles. My last job there was leading Diet Coke and Coke Zero in the US, and eventually made my way to Target, spent about 7 years there, and then moved on to Walmart. But I go back and I point to that job kind of in my early 20s in New York where I knew marketing was for me. And, I've kind of led my career down that path ever since.
And I noticed in your career, a lot of CMOs would by their choice or not by their choice move around more than you have in your career because you've been at places for pretty long tenures. Do you think that has served you well to be at those places for long periods of time?
I mean, I've worked for three really iconic brands, Coca-Cola, Target, Walmart. And there was a lot to learn at each of those places. Each of those three companies has amazing, talented people, and has huge sets of opportunity within the companies. And so I didn't feel like I needed to move around to continue to gain experience. I mean, at Coca-Cola, I worked in the corporate strategy group, I worked in global marketing, I worked in US marketing. I got to wear a number of different hats there. Uh, and so I didn't feel like I needed to move. Now, as I got approached 10 years, I thought, um, I had learned a lot and I thought it was a good opportunity and a good time to go do something else. And at the time had a few different options on the table in a couple of different industries. And I was very selective in choosing to go into retail because I felt like the CPG retail combo would then afford me to be able to do a number of other things. And so I just felt like that was a great grounding and background of having both of those in my toolkit. And so that was a very intentional move. But to your point about, maybe some people maybe moving around or jumping companies more often. I mean, if I would point to the best decisions in my career, there were the times where I decided not to leave. A few years before I left Coke, I did have an offer on the table and I chose to stay. And I think that was amazing that I chose to stay. And I got a lot more out of my time at Coke. Kind of halfway, maybe 2/3 of my way through my time at Target, I had a CMO offer on the table. I decided to stay. And I was so glad I decided to stay. I felt like the next couple of years at Target, I learned so much more. And so I do think that served me well, by spending, you know, longer periods of time at each of these places.
I interviewed Linda Boff a while ago, and she was at GE for decades and decades. And she said what served her best was reinventing herself where she was versus trying to reinvent herself somewhere else. And that was really good advice that she gave to other maybe VPs or other folks in marketing departments. When I think of Soul and Science for the podcast, I think of marketing today is, and it really always has been, a mix of you've got to build brand health for the long term and what your brand stands for, but you got to lean into what the market's asking you to do and show quarterly results and drive business growth. But one's kind of more short term and one's more long term. And you've got to keep both of those things in your head. How do you think about that balance in your role?
Yeah. I think that's a balance and a challenge that every marketer faces no matter where they are. I think that is particularly pronounced in the world of retail, where you have such a clear scorecard every day, uh, and really every hour of how sales are going. But to me, I think the most succinct way that I would sum up the objectives of what our team does is we're here to create and capture demand. And so in creating and capture demand, that's about how are we driving traffic, how are we driving sales, how we're building engagement and loyalty with our customers and members, how we're building equity in the brand. And yes, I think when you think of kind of the classic marketing funnel of, upper, mid, lower funnel, the shorthand, the tendency for a lot of people is to say, oh, well, there's brand stuff and there's performance stuff. I believe that our brand work is performance and our performance work is brand. And we have been working really hard over the last couple of years to collapse the funnel such that it's hard to say, well, is that upper funnel? Is that mid funnel? Lower funnel? I mean, we're trying to drive transactions more and more in all of the work that we do. And I think the more that we can build excitement for the Walmart brand in a place and space where someone can transact, shortening that distance between inspiration and purchase, um, I think we're balancing the long and the short term all right there.
So when you think of creating and capturing demand, you're thinking of your work almost as doing both of those things at once.
Yeah, I mean, more and more, a lot of the work that we do does both of those things at once. Yeah.
You recently announced this idea of Walmart Realm.
Yeah.
You're going like way beyond just showing the importance of e-com and balancing that with the 4,700 stores. Now you're doing more experimental work. How did that idea come about? And can you tell us a little bit about what you want to achieve with Walmart Realm?
I'll start by saying it started with the fact that we have a really great team. I've got, folks on the team who are really focused on what is the next wave, what is the innovation, and they're doing that with a lens towards where is our customer, where are they spending their time, and seeing, obviously more and more people are spending more time digitally, socially, that sort of thing, but seeing that younger generations are embracing more of these kind of virtual immersive worlds. We've got a few people who are just really kind of dialed into that and focused on that. And we saw an opportunity to be where our customers are in a way that felt cool within that environment. We didn't go into this virtual immersive world with the idea of, oh, we're going to create this metaverse version of a Walmart store, because that that would be lame. That's not how or why people are spending their time there. So instead, we developed these virtual and immersive worlds that are cool in that space and are really kind of operate in the kind of same way that people are living in these environments. And we brought in creators who are really dialed into that world and are using that kind of metaverse world as their platform of influence. And we looked at specific trends that were evolving in that space, and we looked for what are the products that would be cool and natural within that. And so we built with a starting point of how do we build an immersive environment where people want to come and hang out. We brought in creators that people like to see and hang out with, and um, experience in those environments. And then we had cool products that you could actually buy in those environments that felt natural. The idea didn't start with commerce. It started with how do we reach our customers in the environments where they are, and then we'll get to commerce along the way. And so that's been, that's been cool. I mean, the precursor to that was really Walmart discovered on Roblox, where we built, a Walmart experience on Roblox, which became, the kind of the top branded, space within that environment. And again, that was one where we went in kind of core to how people are using that space, not as a, hey, the Walmart Supercenter is showing up in this land.
Yeah, so that always goes back to the core philosophy of focusing on the customer. And if you keep the customer in your sites, then you're creating experiences for the customer that hopefully, create and capture demand, but maybe it's not doing that right up front, right? It's like create that experience and then that demand will come, but it's about the customer first.
That's right.
That makes sense. What's something that you've done that maybe one or two examples that you're really proud that you've done while at Walmart?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm proud. I've been here 4 years. I'm proud of a lot of the things that we've done, and I just feel so grateful to have an awesome team of people who are strategizing and executing on great things. A few things that I would point out. I think the last holiday season we had a number of wins that I think we'll point to for many years as things that I'm proud of. The specific things I would speak to are, you know, the holidays are an incredibly cluttered time period. Uh, it is hard to break through, and so we are focused on how do we stand out. How does Walmart stand out on to our customers in important ways at a really pivotal time of year? Way back when, Black Friday was a specific kind of single day sale in the retail world that's like just proliferated to, the end of time. And that creates a lot of deal confusion for customers. I think it creates a lot of angst about for many people of when is the best when is the best time to buy. Well, we wanted to be really clear for our customers that we had a couple key sale moments this past holiday season. They were based on kind of sales data and things that we were seeing. We felt like Wednesday was going to be a day to anchor on. And once we kind of locked on, Wednesdays in November were going to be a sale day for us, we thought of what's the most iconic reference to Wednesday in pop culture. Mean Girls, on Wednesday we wear pink. We brought back the cast. We had, all the kind of inside jokes for people who are really, aficionados of that movie. Like there are tons of Easter eggs in there. And we made a really cool kind of, like really great set of content around that IP that was focused on Wednesdays we shop deals. And we were able to thread a great cultural story, putting Walmart in culture with being clear on what our sale items were and in a way that was just entertaining. And, that drove tons of virality in terms of the content. It boosted our, SEO around deals for the month, like whole host of positive things for the business and how that came to life. And so, I think that was incredible. Similar, as we got into December, we wanted to have something breakthrough. And a couple key things that we looked at were increasingly people are watching quote unquote long form content and quote unquote short form platforms. And, on the TikToks and YouTubes, people are watching full length movies. We knew that holiday rom-coms really kind of spike. It's a tradition that people get around in the holidays. And so we built our own holiday rom-com that was fully shoppable. So I call that rom-commerce. And we had 23 2 to 3 minute episodes where every single thing in the episode was shoppable. And it was great content that people were coming back to and enjoying. And, we're able to make all of that a shoppable moment. And so, really, really cool kind of things there, going back, long-winded answer around things I'd point to that I'm proud of. Like, I think longer term or, kind of more than specific seasonal moments, I think a lot of the capabilities that we've built, I'm super proud of. I'd point out social commerce as something that we've been building for the last 4 years that's really designed to shorten that distance between inspiration and purchase, collapsing the funnel, as I mentioned earlier, and really bringing, great content into the social space that tells a great Walmart brand story, drives reappraisal of key categories for us like fashion and home and that sort of thing in a way that's fully shoppable. And that's been a great capability and one that we're continuing to lean into.
I love those two examples. I love the rom commerce handle. That's really clever. The Mean Girls work was great. And I think what's challenging about your job is, and your brand is, you've got to find something that is cross generational, that speaks to a lot of different ages and a lot of different audiences. Because nostalgia is so popular for a younger generation right now, and the older generation remembers it. That was really a campaign that wasn't really limited to an audience. It was kind of for everyone. And I think that's another brilliant thing about that partnership. Are there any tips for our listeners on, in your role how you think about what to spend your time on.
Oof.
Because you can dive into, there's so many things happening at any moment.
Yeah, and this is one. I mean, I I feel like I've co-opted so many sayings and philosophies and approaches from different bosses and mentors at the three great companies that I've worked for. But when I was at Coke, I had a boss who always framed things kind of in the urgent versus important. And if you think of that like in a 2x2, and it's very easy to get sucked into the urgent because it's urgent. Uh, but we live in a world where there are so many things you could spend all your time on the urgent and really kind of lose sight on the important things. And I think making sure that you're really carving out time to focus on the important things, which are often, a little bit more mid or long term, you have to do that. Otherwise, you're just kind of chasing and you're not able to stay ahead. You're not able to move, I think, with the kind of strategic rigor that you need to. So that's kind of a generic maybe framework to think about. But I think for leaders of people, um, and certainly within my role, I'm very focused on what are the people needs, what are the capability needs, and I want to invest my time in making sure that we've got the right people in place to build the right capabilities that we need. And I want to get close to the work around kind of, and for us, there are probably 4 or 5 big marketing capabilities that I think we're still building, we're still not too bright on. And I spend time there.
I like that matrix of urgent and important. Another way is, if you go too far into urgent, you're almost spending all your energy on reactive
Completely.
and you're not thinking about proactive. Then the proactive stuff becomes urgent because you haven't looked at it and you haven't spent
Right.
time on it. So I wanted to ask you this question. Do you have any tips on, or any, I don't know, anything that you do to manage your mental health or your stress? You seem like a very grounded, calm person. We've met a few times. Is there anything that you do that helps you get through your list that is, always growing and never ending?
So now we're entering to my favorite topic, and we could do a whole podcast about running. um, and for me, that is the short answer is running. I started running road races when I was 9 years old. I have been a lifelong distance runner. Running is the key to my mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. Obviously, it has a physical benefit, but it is the thing that drives my mental and emotional state. And as a lifelong distance runner, I have often suffering through some nagging injury or another. And when I get to a point where when I have to take time off from running, um, I'm not as pleasant to be around because that really is my release point.
How many marathons have you done?
I've actually only done a few. I'm a half marathoner. That's my thing. I've done 40 plus half marathons.
Oh, wow.
My body can only handle a full marathon every now and then. But I'm in a little bit of a zone. I ran Chicago last fall, and I'm doing Berlin this fall.
I did Chicago once. That's a really fun one.
It was great. It was my fastest one, so that made it awesome.
Is there something you're particularly good at that maybe few people are? Some skill that you're very comfortable with that you think you have that has served you well?
I'd maybe point to kind of three things that I think serve me well. One is if I look at the people and events that have had the biggest influence on my life, they all kind of lead to this internal drive for progress. And so the thing that fuels me is that notion of improving day after day and being better today than I was yesterday, whether that's, as a leader of people, whether that's in the specific work that I'm driving, whether that's as a parent, as a runner, all kind of things like that. That is an internal drive for me that's very, very powerful and keeps me moving. The other thing I'd say is I'm a very optimistic person. I really believe that anything is possible, and when challenges come around, I take a very optimistic view of we can we can get over that challenge. Which is maybe a little bit tied into the third thing I was going to say, which is I'm a pretty determined person. So when I set out to do something, I'm gonna figure out how to get it done.
Do you have a mantra or a quote that you think about or that you live by or that helps drive you?
Um, so George Eliot once said, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." So it's never too late to be what you might have been. And I talked about progress and I talked about optimism. And I think that quote captures both of those things really well. I don't know that that's a mantra in my mind, but I think that's a quote that really speaks to me and speaks to this notion of, how do I continue to go get it? I mean, how do I continue to make progress, and kind of anything's possible out there? And I think that's a really powerful, powerful quote.
I love it. That's great. We're going to wrap up here. I have a couple ideas that we do here at the podcast where we talk about maybe something that's inspired you lately, something that I've been inspired by is, and you talked about pink, but I was always blown away by the marketing for Barbie and how it implemented these partnerships that resonated with a lot of different audiences. And I've been inspired by the new Beetlejuice partner, Beetlejuice. It's everywhere. And they've really done a great job of sort of riding that Barbie trend of partnering with other brands to both promote the movie and to, capture revenue and help drive other brands' popularity around nostalgia for Beetlejuice. That's been inspiring me. Is there anything that's inspired you lately?
So I'm gonna bring in kind of multiple worlds, but this is very much a running thing. So do you know Nicholas Thompson? Nicholas Thompson is the CEO of the Atlantic. He was at the Wired for a long time. Um, well, he and I have never met. He probably has no idea who I am, but I follow him closely because he's a really, really smart guy, and B, we're the same age, and he's a faster runner than I am. So I'm always inspired by how dialed in he is on his running. And so just maybe a couple of weeks ago, he ran his first 100K trail race. So that's 62-mile trail race. And just so you know, like he's age 45 plus, 50K American record holder. He ran Boston last year, where his second half was like 1 second faster than his first half, which is super epic on that course. Anyway, so he ran 100K trail race in the last couple of weeks, and he posted a thing about it, and he said, halfway through, so he's like 30 something miles in. I mean, he wasn't feeling it, and he remembered something that someone told him of when you're doing a race like that, you cannot focus on how much further you have to go. And so he turned off his heart rate monitor. He changed his watch so he couldn't see his pace. And he just kind of was like in the moment for the next 30 something miles. And he finished the race in like 12th place. Obviously, I'm a running geek, but like I think this has a broader kind of application for people in terms of when you're doing something hard, you can really get kind of mired in what you have left to do. And that can be, discouraging. And I think just getting focused on the task at hand, getting focused in the moment, being focused on your craft, those are ways I think to really get through it and get through it with excellence. And I mean, that is a focusing mechanism. I think is a great lesson for everyone. And I was inspired by that.
I think that's super valuable because I think we're always focused on where we're going and not where we are. And we also really forget where we've been and we never celebrate how far we've come. Like
Right.
celebrating that he already had 30 miles behind him. It was
Right.
about what I have ahead of me. And then he just focused into, all right, I'm just going to do what's right in front of me right now. I think that is a good metaphor for work and life, really. I love that. All right, what's one lesson that you've learned lately? Mine is, it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation, but I've really been trying to simplify and maybe prioritize, but I'm a kind of person who has like 25 things happening at once. And I'm really on this mission to like edit down to fewer things. And it's a lesson for me because I end up getting burned on a few things because I was overextended. And when you are focused on the present and a lot of your life is editing and simplifying, life does get better when it's not so chaotic and you've got too many irons in the fire. Do you have a lesson that you've learned lately?
So I am reading the book right now, Same as Ever. It was a recommendation from Seth Matlin, so I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I just saw him yesterday.
So Seth gave me a copy of the book. So it's called Same as Ever. Morgan Housel is the author, and I'm halfway through the book. But the other day I read this quote in there, and it was a quote. I might butcher it. I think it was Ralph Hodgson, who's a poet. And this kind of stopped me in my tracks. And he said, some things have to be believed to be seen. Some things have to be believed to be seen. And I found that so powerful because I think right now we live in this world of like metrics and data points and I think for many marketers are in particular are really under the gun to say to prove the value and the efficacy of what they're doing. You can kind of get mired in all of these data points, and the more you say them, I think it doesn't necessarily bring people along and say, oh yeah, I do see the value of marketing. I think there's a storytelling component that has to go along with that. And it's just, to me, that was just a reminder of the power of storytelling to bring people along and to believe and to, kind of understand what you're saying beyond just hammering them with data.
All right, last question. I'll let you go, but we like to dare our audience to do something. It's a double dog dare. I'm gonna dare our audience to. This is something I've been mulling over. It kind of goes into two. It's that George Eliot. It's never too late to be what you might have been. I think, but swing bigger than you are thinking you can do. Sometimes we always collapse our goals into bite-sized things that we can achieve, which is not necessarily bad. But I want to dare our audience to go bigger than they think they can do, than they think they can achieve. Do you have a dare for our audience?
I love that one. So this is one that actually has kind of come down from our CEO, which was a little bit of a challenge to really use AI more to I think to become a student of AI, but just to use it more. And, I put that out for people to say, leverage AI to increase your effectiveness and your efficiency in what you're doing. And I'll give a very specific example. Last night, I in ChatGPT said, what should I expect the questions to be if I were on the podcast with Jason Harris for the Soul and Science podcast? And it gave a really good description about what this podcast is about. And it offered 10 questions that you might be likely to ask on this podcast. And I'm not sure that you ask any of the specific questions. I didn't study it that hard, But I don't think you ask any of this, but they were all like in the zip code of what we've talked about today.
I love it.
I challenge the audience to leverage the Gen AI platform of your choice to help prepare for meetings, help prepare in your personal life, help you get more effective and efficient.
And maybe use it in a way that you wouldn't think to use it, which I like that example.
Yeah.
That you gave, which is great. All right. Well, we appreciate you being on the podcast. This was a great conversation. We can't wait to share it with our listeners. And the last thing I'd say to you is good luck in Berlin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I hope you get in the neighborhood of what you're going for.
I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to it.
Soul and Science is a Mechanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.